As to Louisiana, a new set of stories were told of it. Now it was no longer described as a sort of earthly paradise, but as a place of horror and misery. It was a land of noisome marsh and gloomy forest, where prowled every imaginable evil beast. At certain times of the year the river flooded the whole land, so that the people were obliged to take refuge in the trees. There they lived more like monkeys than men, springing from tree to tree in search of food. The sun was so hot that it could strike a man dead as if with a pistol. This was called sunstroke. Luscious fruits indeed grew around, but they were all poisonous, and those who ate of them died in agonies. In fact, Louisiana was now pictured as a place to be shunned, as a place of punishment. "Be good, or I will send you to the Mississippi," was a threat terrible enough to make the naughtiest child obedient. The Mississippi bubble burst, but still France clung to Louisiana. Once again it became a royal province, and at length, after long years of struggle, it began to prosper. The French had thus two great centers of power in America, one at Quebec, amid the pine trees and snows of the north, and one at New Orleans amid the palm trees and sunshine of the south. And between the two fort after fort was built, until gradually North and South were united. Thus La Salle's dream came true. It was during the time of peace after the end of Queen Anne's War that the French had thus strengthened their hold on America and joined Canada and Louisiana. They had also built a strong fortress on the island of Cape Breton, which commanded the mouth of the St. Lawrence. This fortress was called Louisburg, in honor of King Louis, and it was the strongest and best fortified in the whole of New France. The walls were solid and high, and bristled with more than 100 cannon. The moat was both wide and deep. Indeed, the French believed that this fort was so strong that no power on earth could take it. But the days of peace sped fast. Soon once more Europe was ablaze with war, France and Britain again taking opposite sides. In Europe this war is called the War of the Austrian Succession, because it was brought on by a quarrel among the nations of Europe as to who should succeed to the throne of Austria. In America it is called King George's War, as King George II was King of Britain at the time. Like the other wars before it, it was fought in America as well as in Europe. The chief event in America was the capture of Louisburg in 1745. That redoubtable fortress, which it was thought would hold off any attack, yielded after 6 weeks to an army chiefly composed of New England farmers and fishermen, and led by a Maine merchant who had no knowledge of war. When the news that Louisburg was taken reached New England, the people rejoiced. Bells were rung, cannons were fired, and bonfires blazed in all the chief towns. In England itself the news was received with surprise and delight, and Pepperell, the merchant soldier, was made a baronet, and could henceforth call himself Sir William Pepperell. But when the French heard that they had lost their splendid American fortress, they were filled with dismay. One after another, 3 expeditions were sent to recapture it, but one after another they miscarried. And when at length, in 1748, peace was agreed upon, Louisburg was still in the hands of the New Englanders. The peace which was now signed is called the Peace of Aix-la-Chapelle. By it, it was agreed that each side should give back all its conquests, so that after all the terrible loss and bloodshed, neither side was one whit the better. The New Englanders had been greatly delighted at their conquest of Louisburg. The French, on the other hand, were greatly grieved, and when terms of peace were discussed, Louis XV insisted that Louisburg should be restored. "That cannot be," said King George. "It is not mine to give, for it was taken by the people of Boston." The French, however, were firm, so King George gave way, and Louisburg was restored to France, and Madras in India, which the French had taken, was in exchange restored to Britain. When the New Englanders heard of it they were very angry. Madras was nothing to them. It was but a petty factory on the other side of the globe, while Louisburg was at their very doors, and of vast importance to their security. They had to obey and give it back, but they did so with bitterness in their hearts against a king who cared so little for their welfare. End of chapter 47. Read by Kara Schallenberg in February 2010.